Welcome to Hutchinson Economic Developments. My name is Miles Sebold. I'm the Economic Development Director for the city. We're rolling out a little bit of a different format with this episode, so we're going to kind of break it into some segments. The first part is just going to be development news of things going on around Hutchinson that are economic in nature. So it might be new business expansion or whatever it is. So that'll be the development news. And then from there, we're going to go in and we'll talk about projects that the Economic Development Authority is more directly involved in. And then finally, we'll do our normal feature segment where we'll talk about a project or profile of business or do an interview or whatever it is. Dive into the development news first. So these are things that are going on. It's not the city that's doing these. It's just business activity that is interesting, I think. So Dairy Queen would be an example. They're in the process of working on their remodel. And here I took a picture. There were painting on the outside of the building here a week ago or so. And then here on the corner, you can see they added that tower feature and then new logos. And on the left, you can see they've got their new big plastic spoon there to decorate. And then you can see in the upper right, there's more painting to be done. So the remodeling, that's still going on, at least on the outside. They've got painting on the east side of the building and the west side of the building to do yet. Here's a view inside. They did interior remodel as well and added a lot of tiling. And you can see the gray wainscoting there. Really more of an upscale look now. So very nice. Dairy Queen is open during the whole remodel, so certainly you can go down there and get an ice cream cone, and they'd be happy to see you. No new updates really on the Thai restaurant. This will be at the former Zella's location, still aiming for July as I understand it. And the owner, they just had finished opening up a Thai restaurant in St. Cloud. And him and his family, they own a bunch of these things. And my understanding is that Hutchinson's next in line. So the picture there, that just shows the actual cuisine. That's straight from their website. So that's what we can look forward to here in Hutchinson. I, for one, am excited about this, can hardly wait. Out at the Hutchinson Mall, a new retailer is going in right now. So they're busy setting up that space. That's the picture on the right. And all I can say, I know who it is, but all I'm allowed to say at this point is it's just a variety store. And it will be a neat addition to Hutchinson. And at some point, the store themselves, they will announce who they are. And they like to do it. They want to be the ones to say surprise and here we are and all that stuff. So once this gets closer to opening, then the name will come out. And as soon as I'm allowed to share the name, I'll certainly bring it forward for you guys. Okay, switching gears now to projects that the Economic Development Authority is working on. These are the actual city projects that we're involved in one way or another. So probably the biggest news item out there for everyone is the Hotel Jorgensen. And this one is just an example. There's an adage, it just says that redevelopment is really hard. Redevelopment is hard. When you're dealing with old buildings, you just have so many unknowns and so many additional costs that it really makes it a lot more complicated than just building a new building. If you started with an empty lot and built a new building, that would be easy. And when you're dealing with an old one like this, that's complicated. So redevelopment is hard. So basically what happened with this one is that they had brought in a contractor to clean up the asbestos that's in the building. And they thought they had everything. And so they were ready. They were just a day or two away from bringing down the wrecking ball and doing the actual demolition. And the decision was made that, okay, let's just do a little bit of final testing just to make sure everything is clean. So they did, and then found actually there's more asbestos that needs to be removed. So the original contractor on this thing, they didn't catch everything. And so that caused them to have to go back, and then they had to do quite a bit more additional testing, and then found out that there's a significant amount of asbestos that needs to get pulled out of this building before it can be demolished. So because of all that, the total demolition cost for this thing has gone up quite a bit, and now we're in a place where we need to find some additional funding to help make this project happen. So that'll be my project here over the next month or so, is see if I can secure some additional grant funding for the state, from the state. We had initially gotten a $150,000 grant to help with demolition, and I need to see if we can add on to that. So that'll be my summer project. And right now, I think we're going to be looking at hopefully September, October, somewhere in that time frame to get going on the demolition of the Jorgensen and the Cook building. So the due date for the application for the grant is August 1st. They will make their decisions about the middle of September. Hopefully we're going to get some additional funding, and then we'll be able to roll forward with demolition. So we'll get there. It's just, we just got to remember that redevelopment is hard. It just really is. Another project that's going really well is the landing. These guys are on schedule. This is moving ahead very rapidly, and this apartment building will be open here by late fall. I would say late fall, early winter time frame. So here's a picture I took. This is the south side of the building on First Avenue, and it's starting to look like the final product. It really is looking pretty sharp. So I did talk to the site superintendent, and he said that probably another month or so, mid-July, they should be able to wrap up the exterior work, and then it'll all be the interior stuff that they have to work on. So a lot of the drywalling inside is already complete, so they are making really good progress. So on schedule for late fall, like I said. Here's a picture of the building from the west end. This just shows where the driveway is going to go in for the indoor parking. And then the contractor has arrived, and they're digging out the retention pond. So that's in process right now. Should hopefully be wrapped up by the end of June, I would imagine. Here's another view. You can kind of see the pond taking shape. And this is where it's going. So I mean, there'll be the retention pond, and then the same contractor is going to be working on Glen Street a little bit to add some curb and gutter, and then remove a chunk of it that's used to be the old boat landing. So that'll disappear. And I think by the 4th of July, all that work should be done. Turning now to Main Street again, River House is making really good progress. They're getting siding added to the south side of their building. And then the gap between their building and the neighboring building, that's actually going to be cemented in and made into an outdoor patio. And they'll have outdoor dining. So their plan is they're going to add overhead lights and some decorations and so forth. So it'd be a really neat outdoor dining experience there. So that one should be done, I would think, by the end of summer. So we'll be able to go there and eat yet here this summer yet, or later on. Similar project that the city is working on is First Avenue Southeast next to Library Square. And here we're looking to create what's called a festival street. It's kind of a gathering place for the community. And where we're at right now is we're looking at the feasibility of putting in some additional light poles and then stringing lights across the street diagonally both ways, all the way from Main Street back to Hassan Street. So this should be, I think the engineering design work will be done probably in July. And that'll help us get a handle on what the costs are going to be. Then we got to start thinking about, okay, how do we fund things? So right now there's no decisions made. It's just a thing we're looking at doing. And once we get some more information and start thinking about how to fund it, we'll move this forward, I think. So we'll see. We'll see. It's a neat idea, and I hope we do it, but it's not guaranteed. Out at the Enterprise Center, Cannabis Chem Lab is our new company. They're setting up shop. They've added some lab spaces within the bay, and they're busy unpacking crates of equipment and getting everything calibrated. So they're getting set for a launch, I would say, in July. This is a company that's going to be testing cannabis products. So anything that's cannabis needs to get tested to make sure that it's safe and then to make sure that the levels of the various chemicals in there is below the legal threshold. So that's what Cannabis Chem Lab is going to be doing. So I think July they should be up and running, and this is going to be a really fun company. They'll be neat to watch these guys hit the ground running and watch them grow. And then our other company out at the Enterprise Center, same type of thing. They're busy setting up shop, working through some technical details, but hopefully in July they will be up and running. And these guys make the plastic polymers that other companies will make goods out of that are made of plastic. That's where Demos Materials comes in. So we're excited about this one too. This one's got huge upside potential. Finally, Guiding Light Daycare, that's open for business. And so there's 42 slots available. If you have preschool kids or school-age kids, there's slots available. So the phone number there is on the screen. Give them a call, and Guiding Light should be able to fix you up for childcare needs. So that's it for the various updates. If you have any questions about anything, give me a call. I'd be happy to chat with you. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. Stay tuned for our next segment now. We'll take an inside look at the story of the landing and all the things that went into making this project happen. So stay tuned for that. Welcome back to Hutchinson Economic Developments. My name is Miles Sebold. I serve as the Economic Development Director for the city. And in this segment, we're going to give you the inside story of the landing and how that all came to be. So this thing will be opening here this fall, and there is quite a story about how this project was developed and all the twists and turns. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you here in this segment. So it really begins in 2013. And that was when the city and the EDA together said, let's do an update to our downtown strategic plan called Imagine Hutchinson. And the purpose of doing these plans is we just want to get feedback from the public. What do they want? What do they desire? What would they like to see in our downtown? And then we look at different options for development or redevelopment in the downtown area. And so we want to try out these different options on paper so that we can kind of anticipate how would they work, what would be the challenges, how do we bring this to life, all that kind of thing. So it really is kind of creating the roadmap that we use as we steer to the future. That's the goal of creating these downtown plans. And they have a benefit in that developers really like these things because it helps them understand what the city's intent is, where we're coming from, where we're going, how we're going to get there. And for developers, you know, they're going to be making multi-million-dollar investments in our downtown. They want to be able to reduce uncertainty as much as possible. And that's where the downtown plan comes in. It really just cuts down on the uncertainty because here's the map and they can see, okay, this is where we're going in downtown Hutchinson. So with respect to the landing and that area, we were looking at that as part of this downtown planning process, and we had initially a couple different ideas. One idea was for a restaurant of some type, and it could have a patio on the north side next to the river, and then, you know, parking on the south side of the street. So we thought, okay, that's one option. Another option might be some sort of a mixed-use development where it might be a restaurant or some other commercial or retail store on the main level, and then maybe several levels of apartments up above. So those were kind of the initial concepts that we had for this particular site. So from that, we kind of formulated a plan at the EDA, at the Economic Development Authority, that we would, first we're going to establish what's called a TIF district, and that stands for tax increment financing. And really all that is, it's just a way to capture the property taxes that are generated by a new development. So we capture those property taxes, and then we can take and put those dollars back into the project itself to help make it work financially. That's the purpose of a TIF district. So we would do that first, then we would purchase the property, demo out the building, we would put together what's called a request for proposal that we would send out to developers, then we would make some improvements to the site, and then sell it to the developer for $1. So that's kind of their incentive. But then when the new development occurs, we're going to capture the property taxes that generates, and then we use those dollars to reimburse the EDA for all the upfront costs that we incur. So that's the way that it works. So that was kind of the game plan for this site. So late 2015, then we started negotiating with the owner of the site, and it took us into the early months of 2016 before we finally arrived at an agreement to purchase the site. And turned out we bought it for $225,000. The valuation was, higher, but we got a good deal on it because the building was in very bad shape. So it's a 1-acre lot. The building was a little bit less than 5,000 square feet, but it was an old building and it was falling down. So here's some pictures inside. The roof was caving in, rainwater was coming into the building. There was a lot of mold, and the building itself was just in horrible shape. So, I mean, the building contributed no value to it, basically. So we bought it and then proceeded to demolish the building, get rid of that thing. So we did that, and then we put together what's called a request for proposals, or often it's just called an RFP. So you might ask, what's an RFP? And more or less, I mean, it's sort of a help wanted ad, basically. And in this thing, we put in information, we outline a project that we want to accomplish and give some ideas, like this site. Maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a mixed use, whatever it is. So we kind of create an outline, and then we invite the developer to put together their own ideas on how to solve the problem or how to develop the site. And then also in the RFP, we specifically request information about the developer's experience, because we want people that know what they're doing. We ask them what they think the timeline is. When will this thing begin? When does it get done? And we ask them for some ideas about how much they think the project's going to cost. So we put all this into the document, and then we send it out to various developers, and then they will, in theory, they'll put together proposals that they'll send back to us. So one of the first proposals came in that same year, 2016. There was a developer who approached us and said, okay, we're looking at doing an apartment project, or it could be some sort of a senior housing project. Could be one or the other. The challenge, however, is that in order to make the project work financially, they have to generate a certain amount of rent, which dictates how many units need to be in the project, and that dictates how much physical space you need. And for this developer, in order to make the thing cash flow, they needed more units and needed more physical space than we had. We had a 1-acre site, they needed 2 acres. So nice try, but this one is just not gonna be the one. And then that kind of leads us into 2017. 2017 was a crazy busy year for the Economic Development Authority and for me personally, because we had a huge number of projects launching all at the same time. We were developing and implementing Tiger Path over at the high school. We're talking with Uponor about potentially buying a building up on the Hutchinson Technology campus. We're also talking with the state about doing a grant because we need to redo a road that leads to the building for Uponor, so some grant writing there. Then the Cobblestone Inn Hotel was coming together on the intersection of Highway 7 and 15. That was a huge and very time-consuming project and a complicated project. And then we're building the Hutchinson Enterprise Center at the same time. So it's just, that whole year I was pretty much running from one thing to the next all year long. And because of that, the landing project or that redevelopment project kind of sank to the bottom of my to-do list, and I didn't have a lot of time left to be able to work on it. So 2017, not a whole lot happening with respect to that project. Even still, we did get another proposal from another developer. And this was for some townhomes, and their vision was to put together 4 buildings, 4 duplexes, and then each one would have 2 housing units in it. And that was their proposal. And we looked at it and we said, no, that's not where we want to go. And the reason mostly because it just didn't have the density, right? We want to get as many units into this space as possible. Whenever we're doing redevelopment, we want to go for highest and best use. That's what they call it. We want to get as much bang for our buck as possible, get as much development into this thing as possible. And this one just didn't do that for us. So we kind of said, well, we said thanks, but no thanks. 2018, developer number 3 comes along. And this is one that we had worked with before, so we knew them, and they proposed a mixed-use development. So we liked this project, and what they were envisioning was a restaurant or some other commercial thing on the main level of the building, and then several levels of apartments up above. And this would have been, $4, $5, $6 million project, 40 to 50 some odd apartment units. So this has the density. This is the highest and best use that we talk about. And their specific idea was for more senior housing, 55 and up housing. That's where they wanted to go. And it would have been a 4 or 5 story building. So we actually liked this one. This one we thought, okay, this has got real potential. Let's keep working on this. The challenge with this one though was that because of the physical size of it, we had to get some additional space to put the stormwater pond. Because nowadays you have to account for your stormwater runoff. You can't just let it go into the river. It's got to go into a retention pond first so that it can be filtered and then it percolates out to the river. So it's really about maintaining water quality, among other things. So we thought, okay, maybe we can work something out here. Then 2019, FEMA came around. And FEMA, that's Federal Emergency Management Agency, federal government. Turns out they had a grant program to help remove properties from the 100-year floodplain of the Crow River. And as it happened, 3 of the properties we were looking at, they were within this 100-year floodplain. So we thought, okay, here's an opportunity to get some funding to help us acquire these things, demolish them, and get the site cleaned up and stabilized and all that stuff. So, and the federal grant would pay 75% of it. So they would pay 75%. Locally, we got to come up with 25%, and we felt like we had a way to do that. The one proviso with this, though, is that when these lots are bought with federal dollars, they need to be publicly owned forever. And so they would be city property, and then they would be city property really until the end of time. So we thought, well, that's okay. We want to do a regional stormwater pond. That'll help the whole neighborhood. It's going to be a good water quality improvement project. Let's go ahead. So 2019, I'm busy writing a very large grant application. These things are incredibly involved. We had to get appraisals on all the properties we wanted to acquire, put together a whole project budget, assemble a bunch of maps. I mean, it was just a huge thing to put this thing together. I took a picture of it. The grant application itself is 1.5 inches thick. And so got that all put together, got our budget put together. So we were applying for over $500,000 to do this project. And then I got the grant submitted in December of 2019. That was a lot of work. And then 2020 comes around, and then we're getting additional proposals. So developer number 3, they kind of changed their idea a little bit, but they had a similar mixed-use proposal that they were thinking of. So the picture on the left there, that's one project they did up in Duluth, and they thought, okay, something similar but more Hutchinson specific would be the way to go. And then developer number 4 shows up, and then they had an idea again for some form of senior housing. That's what they thought was the opportunity. But both of these were kind of predicated on us being able to get additional space on that city block. Then developer number 5 comes around. They've got a concept for townhomes. And so we liked this one. We thought this one had real potential. So they had 2 concepts. One was kind of a smaller project, and then another one took up more of the block and was a bigger project. And we really liked this because we thought it fits really well in the neighborhood. We need housing. That's a real pain point for us, so we need the housing. This would create 40 townhomes. So we thought, okay, this sounds pretty neat. Let's look at this. So here's some renditions that the developer provided to us. And basically what they were proposing, it's a 3-story building. So the ground level would be the garage. You drive in to the garage, and then 2 levels of housing up above. That was the idea. So here's another view of it, of how these things might have looked. We thought, yeah, pretty interesting. Let's keep talking. So 2020, as you all recall, that was the year of the pandemic. So that added a complication. That drove up costs. That's going to come back to haunt us later on in the story. In April, FEMA notified us that, yep, we think this grant looks good. We're ready to approve it, but we cannot approve it because of a technicality. They had a rule that they could not award grant money to any jurisdiction unless they had a current hazard mitigation plan for the county. And as luck would have it, the McLeod County Hazard Mitigation Plan had just expired, just a few weeks before, and so there was no current plan, and then FEMA could not go ahead and award the money to us. So we wait. We're in a holding pattern. And so we're working with the county and encouraging them, hey, move this ahead as fast as possible to get the hazard mitigation plan updated and adopted, because we need it so that we can get the FEMA funding. So that takes us into 2021. That one I call the lost year. My slide is blank because we were just sitting there in a holding pattern waiting for the county to put together a new plan and get it adopted. So that was an involved process on their part. We could not move forward. And so that's kind of where it ends right now for part 1. I'm running out of time, so we're just going to end on this cliffhanger. So stay tuned and be sure to join us next time to see how this epic story turns out. In the meantime, if you have any questions or would like to chat, give me a call anytime. I'm always enjoy talking with folks, so give me a call. So that's it for this edition of Hutchinson Economic Developments. Be sure to join us next time to find out how this story turns out. Thanks for joining us.